I have a theory about abortion, and I don't think that it's ever been tested. I think it would be fairly easy to test this theory, but for reasons I'm going to explain in this video, I think that my theory, which is pretty solid, will never be tested, even though it would explain why abortion has become, over the last 50 years, such a big deal. See, abortion has become, over the last 50 years, a huge fucking deal. You don't have to take my word for it, just look around, man. I mean, it is a huge deal, but what's interesting is that before 1960, it was hardly mentioned. It was not that big of a deal, not in the zeitgeist. It wasn't like this incandescent issue that everybody had to have an opinion about and everybody had to talk about. No. Nobody talked about abortion. Abortions happened, no question. But it wasn't this huge thing. In fact, the abortions that happened were very few and far between. And it tended to happen among the extreme upper classes and the extreme lower classes, quite naturally, because, you know, the extreme upper classes, you have the good girl who got pregnant by the boyfriend, and, you know, for reasons, social reasons or whatnot, she couldn't have the kid, and so it was aborted. And on the extreme low end of the social spectrum, you have these women, typically immigrant women, who would have so many children, one after the other, that eventually the midwives and whatnot figured out how to abort the unwanted children. But in the great middle classes, there were no abortions. It wasn't an issue. And so you have to ask yourself, you know, how come? How come now it's an issue? It wasn't before, but now it is. Why? My theory is this. See, contraception came on board, what, in 63, 64? And it became widespread during the 60s. Now, what's a key issue about contraception? Contraceptive pills? Well, see, they are basically human hormones. That's what they basically are. They are hormones. And how do they work? Well, to make a long story short, they essentially trick the body into thinking that it's already pregnant, and therefore it doesn't need to implant another embryo. That is basically the idea. It's much more sophisticated than that, but for purposes of this conversation, we can leave it at that oversimplification, right? This is the reason that, of course, women who take the pill have such good skin. Yeah, their acne and whatnot, it just disappears because of the hormones. Yeah. That's what's going on, see? Girls, teenage girls who take it, all of a sudden discover that their acne is gone and they look a lot better. They sort of like glow. They glow like when they're pregnant. Yeah. The pill is fooling a woman's body into thinking that it's pregnant. Now here comes the ugly bit. The ugly bit from evolution. A pregnant woman is not going to be particularly happy about another woman who's also pregnant. In fact, she will be kind of like opposed to another woman being pregnant. Why? Well, quite naturally, because you see, if she is pregnant and another woman in the tribe or the group becomes pregnant, see, the resources will be split. She and her child will receive fewer communal resources. The other woman with her baby will get her fair share, of course. And therefore, the pregnant woman will be resentful of this. Now, if you think that all of these women who are taking birth control pills are essentially, they are fooling themselves, their bodies rather, into thinking that they're pregnant, this will certainly affect their mood. Everyone knows that a woman's mood and a woman's thought process is often influenced by her hormones. And every woman who is not on the pill, you know, she recognizes her own moods during her menstrual cycle. There will be certain days when she'll be in a certain mood and other days when she will be in a vastly different mood. And she will know, if she's a grown woman and knows and has experience with her own menstruation, that it has to do with her hormones and not what she actually thinks. But you see, if you have vast swaths of the population whose bodies feel as if they are pregnant, they are going to be very negative on the issue of other women being pregnant. And in fact, they will be advocating for other women to not be pregnant, i.e. to abort their children. Yeah, so a woman who's on the pill is more likely to be in favor of abortion than a woman who is not on the pill. And you could say that maybe that's not the case. Maybe women who are naturally liberal, i.e. in favor of abortion, tend to be more educated and tend to be more on the pill, and ergo, it's correlation, not causation. It could be that, but wouldn't it be great if somebody actually made a study of this, a controlled study, to see if birth control pills are the reason so many women are in favor of abortion? I mean, come on, we are getting to a point in our civilization where women are celebrating abortion. What the fuck is that all about? That seems to me, frankly, insane. I mean, when I was growing up, a lot of people were saying that, abortion, it's a tragedy, but it's a necessary evil, and it should be, what was the term? Safe, legal, and rare. That's what they used to say back in the 90s, not too long ago. But now you have women who are on camera, on TikTok and whatnot, celebrating an abortion, their own or somebody else's. Look, I'm a conservative, a hardcore conservative. But I do believe that we are having all kinds of interesting problems because of the food that we take. The food that we take and the water that we drink. So much of the water that we drink has the runoff from birth control pills. And many of the foods that we eat are contaminated with various chemicals from plastic. And we see men acting in ways that are effeminate and bizarre. I mean, you look at old movies from the 1950s and 40s and 30s, man on the street kind of coverage, right? Where some cameraman with a microphone would just stop and talk to some random person on the street, and they all seemed far more manly than the men today. And that's a fact. That's not something that I'm making up. It's quite obvious, as a matter of fact. It seems to me that it is probably from the water with the runoff from the birth control pills and the chemicals in the plastics. A lot of people think the same. Now, why is it impossible to believe that a very powerful hormonal agent that women take on a daily basis cannot influence what the woman thinks? That doesn't seem reasonable. In fact, it would seem very reasonable to think, to conclude, or to at least investigate that a woman's intake of birth control pills influences what she thinks on various issues. It doesn't matter how it influences it, but it does influence them. And my thinking is that insofar as the issue of abortion is concerned, the women's belief in it, in many cases, is hormonally induced by birth control pills. You don't have to take my word for it, because I'm not saying anything. I'm just asking a question. It's a theory I have, and you don't agree with it. Rather, you think that I'm full of shit. Okay, fine, but we should look into it, shouldn't we? I mean, this is a valid question, isn't it? Huh? I think it's an extremely valid question, and I think that there are a number of people who don't want to have it asked. Like another question that is very obvious. I mean, veterinarians know this. See, the odds of getting breast cancer are substantially higher in women who have never given birth. But nobody studies this. Do you know why? Because it would go against feminist orthodoxy. See, veterinarians know this for a fact. Yeah, because dogs that have never had pups, they get breast cancer many times more than dogs that have had pups. See? And if it's true in animals, in dogs and cats and in other animals, then it's certainly going to be true in human beings, because human beings, whether we like to admit it or not, we are animals. And by the same token, we are influenced by hormones. And our thinking is influenced by hormones. I mean, my God, there's Andrew Sullivan, the most liberal guy imaginable, right? He has to take testosterone for some problem he has. I think it's because of his HIV. I forgot, actually. But he wrote an article about it, about how every time he takes testosterone, right, in the days immediately after, he thinks different. His energy is up through the roof. He's much more confrontational. He also just has different ideas and different points of view, and he's written about this. Why is it impossible to believe that women are in favor of abortion much more if they are taking birth control pills, which are a hormone? Why is that impossible to believe? Shouldn't we be asking these questions? Isn't this what science is about? To ask, and more properly and more importantly, answer the questions that affect our society? Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, please check out my Patreon channel. Link is in the description below. On Patreon, I put out an extra video every Wednesday, and I do a Sunday call-in show called Weekly Webinar. Now, the reason that I'm doing it is because it's just more fun, and I can talk about things that if I were to talk about them on YouTube would probably get me deplatformed. Yeah. So anyway, go check it out. Link is in the description below. Thanks very much, and I will catch you next time.